Hello, welcome back to Carissa Explains It All. I am Carissa, I explain it all, and this is my Diary of an Alchemist series in which I am detailing the last 7 years of my emotional healing, inner child work, reparenting, and shadow work journey. In this chapter, we are going to be talking about my first ever panic attack. Yay! And then meeting my spirit guide right after, like literally a minute later. So, very exciting. But first, we'll kind of like go over where we're at in the story. This is still 2019, the year 2019. This is like March, the first week of March 2019. So at this time in life, my husband and I were about 2 or 3 months out from making a move. We were living in a particular place with 2 roommates, and we were going to be moving to a different city about 3 hours away and so that meant changing job locations. We were going to move in with some people. We found some people who were doing like a renovation on their house, and my husband wanted to get out of the industry that he was in, and so he was thinking about something in the trades, like electrician or carpenter or something like that. So we knew this couple they had just bought a house in the city that we were planning on moving to too, and they needed renovations on the house. And so we just kind of like worked out this arrangement where my husband would go and work on their house, and like they would pay for rent for us to like stay in this place. So we're like, okay, this is great. This is a great arrangement. And like in lieu of pay for him, they would just pay for our rent. So I was like, great, this is an amazing opportunity. I've been wanting to do YouTube forever. I'm just going to work casual part-time at this company that I was already working for, that I had been working for, my burnout series. This is the same company that I'm talking about. And they had like another place where I could go work just kind of casual part-time in this new city. I was like, this is great. I can work on YouTube, which I never did. But like this whole, like I had this idealistic vision of what it could be, right? And so this move was on the horizon about 3 months out. But we were also, I was also still debating, like, do I really want to step away from, I'd already stepped down from being a manager at these stores. And being manager just means that you're secure, you can dictate your own hours, you're not going to worry about having your hours cut or not being able to pay bills, whatever. And so that was my form of control before, was always be in management, because then you're needed, right? You can't not get your paycheck and stuff. And so the opportunity had once again come up for me to step into a management position again, and for me that was what my security was attached to at this point in time in my life. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, and that was logical, right? But here I am feeling like going on this different path. I want to do YouTube, I want to do this inner healing kind of thing. I absolutely do not want the stress the hellish stress that made me burn out at my job. Yeah, so I was just like, I was feeling all this anxiety around, am I making the right choice? Is this the right move for us? This is big because we're moving cities 3 hours away. My husband is quitting his job to try this new thing. We are not going to be the ones paying our rent. Someone else is. And, like there's all kinds of things like trust and issue, it was complex. It was complicated. And there's a lot of different factors that could cause anxiety. And I think the biggest thing that was causing me anxiety was the instability of it all. We're like, if we had to look at the overarching picture of what's going on, the lack of certainty of stability, which, if you're familiar with, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like stability is the bottom foundation. You need that one the most. And so because I was sensitizing to my emotions and my stability was in question, the anxiety was rising to the surface. And it happened one day. I was at work, and this person who was the manager, who was thinking about stepping down, was thinking about she was going to move, and this was going to impact me and like my position. Like if I step up, and if I don't step up into the role that she's possibly leaving, then who knows who's going to come in, and who knows if I'll get the hours, and just like all these things, right? Like I'm just like, I don't know what to do. Like, do I go back into the role where I know I can secure stability, or do I forego certain stability for the unknown, the complete freaking unknown, where I can't control my stability necessarily, right? Like, it's terrifying. And remember, the meditation I did, this last one, was the flip. My ego is now not going to be making the decisions my higher self was. But oh, so scary to trust the unknown. And I hadn't built any of my, just like my connections, the power dynamics, like I knew how to get back into control really fast and secure stability and money and all that. And here I am choosing to not do that. Like, what is wrong with me is like what probably my nervous system was freaking out and feeling like, what are you doing? Like, why would you choose the path unknown that is very possibly most likely going to be unstable? Like, why would you consciously do that, you know? So anyways, I'm at work, I'm talking to this coworker. She's like, I don't know if I'm gonna go or I'll stay or blah, blah, blah. And like, it was making me feel anxious, not just nervous, but for the first time ever, I felt an elevated level of nervousness and anxiousness. And I didn't know what it was. Like, I'd never felt this before. So she left for lunch. I was gonna be leaving for lunch very shortly, but I went into the other room because I started shaking. Like, my whole body was shaking. And I was like, I'm not even hungry. Like, what is going on? Like, I'm shaking, my heart is racing. I was like, what the hell is this feeling? And it feels like it's like overtaking me. I'm just like, I've never had an emotion like overtake me before where like I was not in control of it. It was the craziest thing. So anyways, she comes back from lunch. I'm going on my lunch. I go out to my car, and by now I am like just trying to hold it. Like, I am doing everything I can to hold in the anxiety. And if you've ever felt this feeling of anxiety, you know what I'm talking about. It's very panicky under the surface. Like, I want to describe it more, but I also don't want to make you like feel the feeling of anxiety by describing it. So if you felt anxiety, you know what I'm talking about. So anyways, I went out to my car, closed the door, and had a jacket in the car, and I put it over my head, and I was just like trying to breathe, trying not to freak out. And as I always did back then, I watched a video of Teal Swans where she talks about panic attacks, because I kind of realized, I was like, I think this is panic, because like I feel like my thoughts are racing, I don't know what to do, it feels overwhelming. So I watched this video on panic attacks, and I think she has several, but the one that I watched, she proposed a controversial method of dealing with panic attacks. And so I want to be the responsible person here and be like, you know, I live my life as an experiment. I am not recommending that you as the viewer do this unless you, I'm not even going to say that. You do what you're going to do. I'm just telling you what I did. So this controversial method is to, in fact, let yourself fully feel the panic. Let it completely take over you. Let it escalate and like build in pressure, tension, in grandiosity. Let it just completely build and take over your entire body. Let it. Because what's really going on is like you're fearing your own fear. Like, your anxiety is your fear coming up to tell you that you're afraid. And so when you suppress it, you're like fearing your own fear. You are resisting yourself. You are, in fact, like amplifying the fear by being afraid of the fear. And so her suggestion is to let yourself fully feel the fear, be completely present with it, which is the heart of emotional healing, is to be completely present with yourself. And if you're completely present with the feeling of panic, it is to just let it run its course. Fully let it take over you. But she also advises to kind of step into the consciousness of, if you were speaking to this anxiety, what would it say? And as you let it build, as you let any emotion, not just anxiety, but as you let any emotion build, you're able to more easily communicate with it, to ask it questions and to hear a response, because you're feeling it so strong. So you're like getting kind of a biofeedback that gives you information about what your somatic sensations are telling you and communicating to you, because they're so big. So they're like loud and you can kind of like hear them, and you start to build a language with your emotions that, this is what this feeling means when it, you know, like this is what it means to my inner child when I feel this feeling. And so that's what I did. I just let the panic build and completely take over me and started to have a conversation with it. I had this vision of a past life, which I had never done before, and this was very unprompted. And I'm actually not going to give away the details because I think it's a little controversial as to like this past life like figure or person or whatever, their situation. So I'm not going to go over it in this video, unfortunately. I would love to just share openly, but you know, it's the world that we live in. So I am going to keep that to myself, but I visited in my mind's eye this kind of like past life and this feeling of being imprisoned and trapped, just completely trapped with no way out, no life worth living, just my will is not my own. I can't do what I just literally, I'm at the whim of someone else. Like there's this overwhelming feeling of it. So whether my mind made that up or not either, right? Like whether that's really, I really had a vision of my a past life, whether past lives exist and we're able to access them, whether, whether any of that's true or not, whatever story your mind makes up is the story that you can then, it's telling you a truth, whether it's actually a past life or whether it's the story I made up to deal with perhaps something younger that I can't actually really remember about my own child self and feeling that way. Doesn't really matter. The emotion that's there is the one that we're dealing with. So the feeling of being trapped, the feeling of my will is not my own. I cannot control my circumstances. In fact, I am being controlled by others. This kind of feeling is the thing that was coming up in the panic attack. This is what panic feels like to me, to Carissa, in Carissa's body. Panic feels like trapped, cannot, like someone else is controlling my life kind of feeling. And as you feel this, like eventually, whether or not you have a narrative, like a conversation with it or not, once the feeling builds, like it can't stay there forever. It can't sustain itself that like forever. So eventually it will subside. And I think the really beautiful thing about this process is that the next time you feel panic, because I did have 2 more panic attacks that I can remember. So I will go over those when we get to those journal entries. But once you experience letting a panic attack fully take over and then like it's subsiding, you're no longer like fearful of it. Like you just faced literally fear itself in your body and you survived. You didn't die, even though it's the feeling of like you could die. And I think it taps into that primal feeling of fear of death, right? And whatever death feels like emotionally for us. For me, it was like this feeling of being trapped. And so like, once you know that psychologically, once you know that physically, like the next time a panic attack came up, it wasn't pleasant. I sure as hell didn't want it, but I also didn't fight it. I was like, fuck, okay, here we go. Like, let's get this over with. Let's do it. I wasn't afraid of it. And so in the next time I let it come up, I communicated what I needed, what was the right path for me. That's the thing. My intuition was communicating very clearly to me what I wanted. I just couldn't hear it because I never really tapped into feeling my feelings. Now I'm resensitizing to it and the fear is coming up to tell me you are genuinely afraid of this situation. Do not let it happen. We are telling you this way to not go. And so yeah, so I this method is the only method I would ever use for myself to deal with a panic attack. Now I don't know your situation. Obviously every person's different. I cannot advise that anyone else does this, but I am just saying it is a technique that is out there and it's one that I used and it's the only one I'll ever use because it is effective. It is so effective. So the panic that was coming up was telling me, feeling trapped and all that. So I'll read a little bit from my diary. I wrote, I had just went ahead. This is me talking to the panic, to the part of myself that's feeling this fear of being trapped. And I wrote, I had just went ahead with the move without even asking my young ego self, my inner child, if she was okay with it. I knew that was causing my anxiety, and I asked what I could do to begin to heal that initial emotional trauma in the past life. Because I was at a complete loss. I was like, I've never seen this before. I don't know what to do with this emotion or to do with that part of myself that feels that way. All I could do was surrender because I couldn't do anything to control my life in that instance. In this past life, she couldn't even fight. Like she wasn't allowed to fight. So if you're not allowed to fight and you're being controlled, what do you do? And all she could do at that time was surrender to it and just let it happen. So I was like, how can I offer? Because when you're doing emotional healing, the presence, first and foremost, presence, awareness and presence. And then how can you self-soothe? Because right now that aspect of you needs self-soothing. You need the love and the nurturing that you didn't get. So I asked how would I offer her comfort when she felt isolated, separate, alone, and out of control. Since I couldn't change her physical environment and she couldn't believe that she loved herself or that anyone else did in those moments, I decided to just have reminders for her that there is beauty in the world and to try to remind her that those pieces of beauty were reflections of her. Because God or universe or source or whatever is in everything, in all of creation. It's in her, it's in the grass, it's in the sun, it's in the trees. And so whenever she saw these things, whenever she saw the trees or the grass or the sun, she could be reminded that that beauty also exists within her. And thus, because it's in her, because it's in the sun, because it's in the grass, it's in the trees, she is not separate from it. She is never separated from love. Even if the people around her are not giving her love, are doing the worst possible thing and hurting her, she is still not separate and alone, because the whole world around her, the natural world anyways, is full of love and beauty, just like her. She is that as well. And all I could do was offer her the ability to self-soothe and comfort and be reminded of love so that she wouldn't feel so separate or that the world wouldn't feel completely ugly. So then, following that logic, if I would tell my inner child that, then that same logic would then apply to me here in the present, the me that's feeling the panic attack right now. I would be reminded by things of beauty in this world, that I was not alone, and that I can trust my higher self to pursue this beauty and love. I actually have the freedom now to pursue beauty and love. I am not trapped. I am not the child self who was unable to enact my will in the world. I have support and resources now. I can choose to be part of that beauty and that love and to see it within me and to go for that. So speaking as my inner child, being the inner child part of this conversation, I asked for a spirit guide to show me these things. This is really cool because this is part of the intuitive process. I did not work with spirit guides before this. I didn't believe in them. I think even with this experience, I still didn't believe them afterwards. But yeah, I just think it's really cool that my inner child asked for some kind of like higher guidance or whatever to be there and to show her the beauty. And the spirit guide that showed up was Merlin. And at that time, the only concept I had of Merlin was that crazy old kooky dude in the cartoon version of Sword in the Stone, of the Arthurian legend, but like Sword in the Stone, the Disney one from like the 70s, I think. That like older kooky guy, he's just all in blue, he's got like a big white beard and a low cone cap. And I was just like, why did I imagine him? Like, that dude? Like, what? Like, that's so weird. Now, knowing the stuff I know, I'm like, holy shit, that archetype of the magician, of, you know, like Carl Jung's archetypes and the magician and Hermes Trismegistus and like Thoth and like all of these very incredible, powerful figures of the magician archetype and being able to control your own destiny, your own fate, and like pull in the elements of the world and like yourself and like and enact this into the world, enact your own will into the world. This is the archetype that showed up for me. And so whether or not you believe that there's actually an entity out there that was a spirit guide, that was Merlin or Hermes Trismegistus or whoever, you know, out there, or whether it's our own psyche, the collective psyche, as Carl Jung talks about the collective psyche and the archetypes, and that's the particular archetype that I needed to come to my rescue at the time, doesn't really matter. Like, that's incredible that intuitively that's what came up. And what Merlin said to me in this spirit guide meditation, he said that he would use magic to manifest little miracles in my life this week to remind me of the beauty and to trust my higher self. I agreed to be on the lookout for Merlin's miracles and then ended my meditation and went back to work. Now, the little miracles, I'll just kind of sum up. There was a couple things, like I was feeling really alone, and then I looked at my phone and one of my coworkers had texted me like, I really appreciate you. And I was like, that's amazing, like so random. And in that moment, when I needed it, and that felt like a little Merlin miracle. Another time was I was feeling really upset that, you know, my husband was getting ready to move out to that new place. And so I wasn't spending much time with him because he was wrapping up stuff at work. He was saying goodbye to friends. He was just spending a lot of time not at home and not with me. And so I was really missing him, and I told him, I was like, I really miss you. And usually, you know, we're all so busy in our lives and stuff, he'd be like, I know, I miss you too, I love you, you know. But instead he looked at me like in my eyes and was like, I love you too. And it was just like, it was like so like precious. Like I was seen when I needed to be seen. That felt like a Merlin little miracle. Right after that, I was getting ready for work. I got out into my car and was about to drive away for work, and I got a phone call. I looked down at my phone, it was my husband, and I picked up. He's like, I just wanted to say again, I love you. And that was just like, so sweet. You know, it was just like another little Merlin miracle. You know, you know, whether or not that's Merlin, a figure, a deity, a spirit guide, whoever in the ethers controlling things, whether it's my own mind and my archetype and pulling in things with law of attraction, whether it's just a random coincidence, I think it's beautiful that what I needed, what my inner child needed, was to see the beauty in the world and to not fear those fears, and to be reminded that when I do feel those fears, this is my sunshine. This is my little way of like resetting and self-soothing and knowing that things are going to be okay even if things don't look like they're going to be okay. So yeah, so I'm going to wrap it up because, you know, I don't want these videos to go too long, but that is the episode where I had the panic attack and met my first spirit guide, Merlin, which is so significant now. But like back then I was just like, oh, that was kind of cool. Like, hey, that's cool that I imagined that, you know? And I just really didn't understand any of it at that time. And it's really cool looking back to see it. So anyways, that's chapter 14. In chapter 15, the next chapter, I'll be talking about becoming aware of frustrations. So becoming aware of when I am frustrated and actually like pulling them apart and realizing that just because I'm frustrated doesn't mean that this is the way life is. Frustrations come up to show me I'm frustrated with this, I don't like this, and I have the free will to choose to not continue doing things or going on the same path or communicating the same way so that I don't keep having these frustrations. For me, I thought frustrations was just like, I'm frustrated in life, and that's just the way life is. And this is the turning point where I start realizing frustrations come up. That doesn't have to be the way life is. I can actually choose different things, and I can choose to believe different things. And just because everyone else still acts like the old way doesn't mean I have to act like that. And I will actually start to attract new experiences because I'm doing new things, I'm saying new things, I'm behaving a different way, I'm setting boundaries, I am saying no to that way that makes me frustrated and saying yes to another way, and just like becoming aware of this totally different way. It was probably a combination of growth mindset stuff that I was doing as well as releasing limiting beliefs. So this is me coming into that. That would be the next chapter. And one other thing too I'll address in there is there was a dream that I had where I felt a demonic force, which actually just happened to be part of my shadow. But it was a very interesting kind of dream. So I'm very excited. I'll go over that too. So as always, thank you so much for watching, and make sure you're liked and subscribed, and definitely check out one of these other 2 chapters if you haven't, the next one or the one previously, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.